People have to know about this.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and let's talk about all the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in episode 11 of Andor. This episode set the stage for a final showdown on Ferrix, where our key characters will finally gather in the same place for the first time since episode 3. And I think that we're about to see Cassian formally join Luthen's cause and the Rebel Alliance to be formed. Now, one clue that this is happening soon is the score of the opening credits. We pointed out last week that more instruments have been added with each episode. Last episode sounded like this. And this episode added more horns and strings. Horns are often a symbol that you're being called to war, and adding so many new stringed instruments means that you're adding more seats to the orchestra as these various rebel factions and cells begin to gel together into one cohesive unit. First, let's talk about some of the recurring themes in this episode and how the beginning and the ending mirror each other so well. The episode begins with Melshi and Cassian dangling near death, trying to evade Imperial patrols. Melshi says,
"My hands won't work."
And the episode ends with the two of them going out into the world to potentially face down those same Imperial patrols. Melshi begins the episode on the brink of death, about to literally lose his grip, but the episode ends with those same hands gripping a blaster and being filled with resolve.
People have to know about this.
Once again, the episode also intercuts between people who are trapped, but in this episode, people begin to find an escape. Andor and Melshi escape from Narkina. Luthen escapes from an Imperial patrol. Mon Mothma is about to escape her financial situation by betrothing her daughter to a gangster. Cyril is escaping the prison of his day job to hunt for Andor, and Bix may or may not be escaping her predicament by lying to the ISB.
What are you wearing?
My jambies. You said today could be casual jambi time day.
Oh yeah, but to be honest, I did not really know what a jambies was.
Oh my gosh, Doug, these clothes are so comfortable. See, Jambies makes extremely soft, premium, inactive wear, and they're the sponsor of this video.
So they make pajamas?
I mean, yeah, you can sleep in them if you want, but I like to wear mine when I'm just home and chilling out. Unlike my other clothes, these are designed for comfortable sitting and lounging.
But what makes them so comfortable? I am a dog, so I find this fascinating.
Well, you see, they developed their own fabrics. It's made from a blend of modal fibers and spandex. And modal is like cotton, but it's more smooth and silky. And the fabric is custom developed by the same person who developed the Lululemon leggings. I mean, you spend most of your life at home, so why not wear clothes that are comfy and designed for relaxing?
But why not just wear a pair of shorts or your pajamas?
Doug, I'm telling you, you can feel a huge difference with these clothes. These clothes are made for chilling, and they're functional. For instance, like these boxers, they actually have pockets. I know it sounds weird at first, but it makes total sense. You get up in the morning, you make breakfast, you want to keep your phone in your pocket. And I just have to once again mention the softness and how comfortable my jambies are. I highly recommend you give jambies a try. Use the link in my description or code ScreenCrush25 at checkout to get early access to their Black Friday sale and 25% off site-wide. Thanks so much to Jambies for sponsoring this video. Now back to what I was saying. As Cassian is near death, we see that his adopted mother Marva has just succumbed to full-on death. And there's something else that we see a lot of in this episode that's been lacking in the series. Simple acts of kindness. The fishermen help Cassian and Melshi, and Brasso is kind to B2. So Marva's death scene is presented from the POV of B2. Originally, we see him as a cold, unfeeling red eye. Now, of course, this is calling back to HAL 9000 from Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
HAL was a computer designed to help the astronauts, who gradually became more concerned with his own well-being and survival.
I'm afraid.
Now, I don't think the B2 is going to start shoving people out of airlocks, but like HAL, he does have a strong emotional desire.
What about the droid?
As we see the world from his point of view, one of the women just refers to him as a droid, and he starts to shake nervously, disrupting this cup. And the cup is probably there because someone was using him as a table, as an object. And he's afraid that he'll be deactivated or just alone without Marva around. But Brasso doesn't treat him like an appliance, he treats him like a friend who just lost someone special.
We're gonna take her out in a minute. Want to say goodbye.
And man, Star Wars has a weird relationship with droids. A few years ago, the pop culture detective put out a video called The Tragedy of Droids, where he pointed out that droids are second-class citizens, but they have emotions. But then again, Luke did tell us that this kind of attachment is unusual.
But I've never seen such devotion in a droid before.
I have.
How would that work?
That works.
But all of this is just heartbreaking. B2's basically a child who can't even begin to process Marva's death.
I want Mama Marva.
Marva is taken out on an anti-grav sled just like Olaf was in the last episode, and I think the contrast between the two of them is very interesting. Marva died with rebellion in her heart. She died in her home, which is all these warm colors, and she's attended to by her friends. Olaf died basically an Imperial slave in a cold, sterile place where he was bagged and thrown out like garbage. On Ferrix, we see people respectfully stop what they're doing as the body is carried away. And we do this today at funeral processions, but it is an old custom dating back hundreds or thousands of years. Whereas in the prison, people are forced to be on program, not out of respect, but so they can get the body out without hassle so they can get back to work sooner. And like I said, Olaf was thrown out with the trash, whereas Ferrix has a very particular custom.
You become a block of Ferrix brick.
So this makes you look at all the brick buildings around Ferrix very differently. The people of Ferrix, in their deaths, build their planets up. They become part of the buildings that house future generations. It's like the dead and the living building their community together. It's the sort of detail that the Empire wouldn't care about when they say appropriated a hotel for their headquarters, even though that hotel is essentially a graveyard for the people of Ferrix. Now the Imperials say that the bricks become part of a wall, which is also a nice detail. Walls can be used to keep people in, like the Imperials do, but they're also used for defense, to keep people out, like how Ferrix is about to uprise against the Empire. Marva is being tended to by the Daughters of Ferrix, which was mentioned a few episodes ago, and I assume is like a woman's auxiliary group, but in space.
It's a smutty book.
Across the street, we see Senta working in a bar, and her regular customer is the Imperial spy that she clocked in the last episode. It's also fitting that she could tell this guy was a spy right away, but he appears to have no idea what she actually is. Going back to what Andor said back in episode 3.
They're so fat and satisfied. They can't imagine it.
Back on Narkina, Andor and Melshi want to steal a quad jumper. Now we saw one of these parked outside in Navarro in The Mandalorian episode 1, but we first saw one of them in The Force Awakens when a different pair of people, Rey and Finn, were going to use one to escape, but then fell short. And I love that the aliens in this show are all done with practical effects. In fact, most of the sets in Andor are also practical, but the windows in Mon Mothma's apartment are LCD screens, so the actors can look out on Coruscant instead of looking out on green screens. Even this fisherman's cool mechanical arm, it would have taken like a lot of extra time to build, but that's the care they put into creating this world. Or like this guy here, this is just like a background shot of a guy working on a droid, but they still had to build that droid just for a background shot that's like 1 second long, just so this guy could have something to do. Awesome show. Melshi and Andor get caught in nets, a Star Wars staple.
Great, always thinking with your stomach.
Now, there's a neat parallel with the fisherman here to Dedra's speech to Bix.
Better fishing on land these times here.
You're in my net, Biggs.
Cassian is caught by literal fishermen, but these guys hate the Empire so much that they'll help these random 2 prisoners escape. Again, the difference between Cassian and Bix's predicament is simple acts of kindness. And as Cassian is trapped within a trap, we intercut to the ISB, setting another trap for him with a funeral.
We want a funeral.
Then we shift back to Luthen's shop where Vel meets with Kleya. Every episode it seems like that I'm pointing out the same Easter eggs in the shop because like I never know who's watching our videos for the first time. So this time I'm just going to say, hey look, that's a Gungan shield. So when Vel enters the shop, the two of them speak in code words.
My cousin. I understand she shops here.
This is one of several coded conversations in the episode, and I just have to shout out this framing in this conversation. The 2 actors are standing close to one another. They could have been shot within the same frame, but director Benjamin Caron chose to shoot them in 2 separate shots, with both actors lacking lead room. That's the space in front of an actor where they're looking. Now this is often used to create tension in a scene, like there's something creeping up behind the actor that they can't see, something that they're blinded to. It's also an indication that the actor is missing out on something because they cannot see ahead of themselves. In this case, these 2 women have created barriers around themselves to protect their identities. Plus, they really don't like one another. Kleya is framed with this darkness behind her and the warrior armor from Force Unleashed. This is saying that she lives in the shadows, whereas Vel has all this Chandrilian-esque gold behind her, implying that she is wealthy and can do whatever she likes. Padme's headdress is even directly behind her, another symbol of the wealthy in the rebellion. Then, as they talk, they briefly occupy the same frame, facing forward toward the camera to show that they're on the same page, before Vel gets confrontational.
I gave him Eldani. What have you done lately?
And then the 2 of them are filmed in shot reverse shots over the shoulder to imply that they're still in the same space or on the same side, but they occupy very different spaces within the rebellion.
We've come a long way from George Lucas filming people sitting on couches.
Yes, we have. As a reminder that the people of Ferrix love their traditions, we get the triumphant return of Hammer Guy. That's another thing this show has done really well, showing us the local traditions of different planets. Ferrix has its bricks, Aldhani has the eye, and Chandrilia has a weird religion and arranged marriages that I'm going to talk about in just a bit. So all of this is showing us the stakes of the rebellion, because the Empire wants to create a single unified system. This is what they think of local customs.
Wipe them out. All of them.
And then we go to Bix in her cell in a close-up shot that is very much like B2's that opened the episode. This shows that they are both trapped, kind of just in their own way. She's brought into an interrogation room, and notice the cameras here are the same design we saw on the Death Star in A New Hope. They show her a holo of Anton Krieger and ask if he is her source, Axis.
So wait, who's Krieger again?
Okay, very brief explanation. Krieger is leader of another rebel cell. Luthen wanted Saw to work with him, but then Saw said,
The man is an ox. Slow and stupid.
That's strong.
Then the Empire apprehended one of Krieger's pilots who told them about a raid Krieger had planned. The same raid that Luthen was trying to recruit Saw to join. So the ISB is setting a trap for Krieger. Luthen has a mole in the ISB who told him about the trap, but Luthen is willing to let Krieger die to protect his source, and because this would also make the Imperials let their guard down. Now it looks like the Imperials are eager to pin as much onto Krieger as they can. If Dedra can say that Krieger is Axis, then it means that she can wrap up her case and get her promotion. Now, we're not even sure if Bix even answers their question here. She probably knows that once she gives them Axis, they'll kill her because she'd be useless to them. But she also wants the torture to stop. My guess is that she lies, says this is Axis, and that then she's sentenced for execution but is rescued in the next episode.
Then we decided to come and rescue you. Good job.
As the camera is on Bix, the audio overlaps from Mon Mothma's apartment. Now note the chant here, the old ways hold us, presenting us with two very different viewpoints of bondage.
Yeah, what's going on with this?
Well, Mon's daughter Leda is a church kid who is more religious than either of her parents. She found the adult who leads the ceremony and recruited all of her friends to join in. Essentially, Chandrilia is a very old, very moneyed society with this religion that celebrates a woman being in a traditional role. The kids chant, the old ways bind us. But the meaning of the word bind here is more like holding us together. They even say safe in the braid of the old ways. Braids, like the way Leda always wears her hair. This is also in contrast to the binds that the Empire is holding people in. The kids go on to chant, safe in the knot of the binding the old ways teach us. And then they say, bound against the wind, tied to shore. So this is calling to mind sailing. So knots can be used as the Empire uses them, to bind, to hold, to pin down, or they can be used to hold together a ship or sails. Knots can be protection against the elements. This goes back to what Davos said in the last episode, when he referred to adhering to traditions as liberating.
Boundaries can be liberating.
Remember that Davos has offered to give Mon Mothma all the money she needs, and all he wants in return is for his son to be betrothed to Mon Mothma's daughter. Davos wants a gateway into legit society and to be considered part of Mon's family.
Don't tell me you're taking proposals.
Now, all of this is basically setting up that her daughter wouldn't actually mind being in a prearranged marriage because it's part of these traditions that she's reciting. So Mon Mothma has an out, but she's very much against the idea of betrothal because that's how she ended up married to this tool.
Well, good luck feeding the galaxy. I'm off to feed myself.
And then Mon spells out how she got into this mess, taking money from her family trust to fund the rebellion until suddenly the Empire started to monitor large transactions. Last week, Luthen had that epic monologue where he talked about sacrificing everything.
What do I sacrifice? Everything!
And now we see that Mon Mothma has made the greatest sacrifice she possibly could for the rebellion. She has sacrificed her family. And then we go to another dysfunctional family, Cyril's, whose mom is waking him up like he's a child.
Call for you.
Linus Monk returns. You know, that guy who broke Star Wars taboos by finally saying the S word? Linus tells Cyril that Andor is likely to return to Ferrix, and afterwards we finally get to see what is in Cyril's private box.
Been in my private box.
What's in the box?
Now, I expected the box to have like watercolor drawings of Dedra, but the worst thing about this show is that we don't get a good look at what's in Cyril's personal box. Now, last week we did an Andor talkback comparing it to the Book of Boba Fett, where Heather Antos drew an interesting parallel between Andor and Cyril, saying that we're watching how both of them become radicalized by two different sides. The character parallels continue in this episode as we see Cassian getting back into his own private box, reclaiming his credits in Space Miami. And in Andor's box, the Arabesh letters here read, "Control is so desperate, be fused, it's so unnatural, tyranny." So what we're seeing here is Nemik's manifesto that he gave to Andor. It's very touching that he kept it, and it shows that a little bit of Nemik's philosophy seeped into Andor, and that there's a seed of rebellion growing inside of him. So then we go from Andor sneaking out of a hotel room to Luthen sneaking around with the partisans. Now I broke down the history of Saw Guerrera in past videos, so I'm not going to go too much into that, but basically he fought with the Separatists in the Clone Wars, his sister died, that radicalized him, and then after the Empire was created, he formed a partisan band that struck the Empire with these brutal attacks. This is the reason why the rebellion didn't want to associate with him in Rogue One.
His militancy has caused the Alliance a great many problems.
And here we're seeing an early attempt to bring him into the fold of the rebellion, with Luthen asking him to provide Krieger with air support. The air support being the Z-95 headhunters that are parked outside, and these are precursors to X-Wings. Now here, Saw agrees to help, but with terms.
But we take tactical orders from no one. We get to loot the Eastern Garrison, whatever we can carry off.
So Saul actually sees an opportunity to fund his own group, but he also wants to retain autonomy. So I love little details like this because it really shows why he wasn't part of the main rebellion by the time of Rogue One. Even in this scene, when Saul realizes that Luthen has spies, Saul's first thought is of himself.
Maybe there's someone here with me.
This scene shows the beginning of his paranoia that only grows. In Rogue One, he basically trusts no one and even interrogates a pilot who's defected to his side. And Stellan Skarsgård continues to be a treasure on this show.
Put it down or give it back.
That dude was wasted in the MCU. Luthen gives away fake information saying,
It's tubes.
So this character's name is actually Benthic. After Saw Guerrera's death, Benthic keeps leading the partisans, even teaming up with Luke and the Rebel Alliance at one point. Kind of fitting though, because his first reaction in the comics was to take Han, Luke, and Leia hostage. Now his nickname is Two Tubes, which is why Luthen calls him
Tubes.
Why does Luthen give Saw a fake informant?
Well, because he knows that Saw would always trust Tubes no matter what, and he's trying to show him that it doesn't matter if he has an informant, they're all on the same side. Afterwards, we get another coded conversation in the episode, this time Luthen talking to Clea.
Need that piece. We lose that and we'll have to close shop. You need to think of the consequences of losing that piece to another collector.
And here he's actually talking about Andor. Now a few episodes ago he ordered Andor's death. I think he would much rather recruit Andor to the rebellion. But if Andor's going to go off and do his own thing, then Luthen can't risk somebody knowing his face. And then he runs afoul of a Catwell-class arrestor cruiser. So these were built specifically to catch smugglers and pirates, hence the powerful tractor beams. We first saw one in Solo right here. Luthen generates a transponder signal from Alderaan, the home planet of Leia Organa. But this isn't just an Easter egg though, because remember, this entire series is leading up to Rogue One, where the Death Star became operational and then did this. Luthen escapes by using the Imperial tractor beam against itself. He releases metal shards which are much lighter than his ship, so the tractor beam pulls them back incredibly fast, shredding the dish. The first TIE fighter Luthen takes out is a TIE bomber before he takes the others out, Anakin style.
I'll try spinning, that's a good trick.
Next, Cassian contacts home to get a message to Marva, and at this communication station we see schematics for two ships with familiar designs. Adam Lance Garcia points out that this one on the left is definitely a Corellian freighter, similar to the Millennium Falcon but actually closer to a YT-1930, and the one on the right is similar to a Republic troop transport but with the high central fin that the Empire added on. Help me out friends, tell me what you think any of these ships could be down in the comments below. So this is the final of the episode's coded messages, and it's also the most unprofessional.
Cass, hang on.
Melshi ends the episode fired up, ready to tell people about the injustices the Empire is visiting upon their prisoners. Melshi is very much ready to be the rebel that we will meet in Rogue One, but Cassian still has self-preservation on his mind. He is haunted by the death of Marva. He wants to go home for her service, to say goodbye, kind of like Brasso foreshadowed at the start of the episode.
We're gonna take her out in a minute, if you want to say goodbye.
But Cassian is still not fully a rebel, and notice that he gives Melshi one of his blasters but none of his money. Andor still is looking out for himself. He wants to find his sister and take Marva away from the Empire where they can all be safe. But now, that's no longer an option, and maybe an Imperial attack on his mother's funeral is what will finally push him to become Luthen's deputy on the ground. And I want to say thanks again to Jambies for sponsoring this video. Use my link in the description or code ScreenCrush25 at checkout to get early access to their Black Friday sale and 25% off site-wide. Well, that's all the Easter eggs I found, but if you found any, let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.